If you're a fan of Pawn Stars at all, you are familiar with the curious character known as Chumlee. He is often the butt of all the jokes and comes across as rather dull. But really, Chumlee, Austin Lee Russell, is one of the most interesting characters on Pawn Stars. He's been entertaining fans since the show began and has developed a cult-like following. Russell began working at the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop a few years before they started the History Channel show, Pawn Stars. He was a childhood friend of Corey Harrison and acquired his nickname Chumlee at a young age for his abnormally large face and chin. As a Pawn Star, Chum has slung around his fair share of cash, millions that is. And in today's video, we're going to find out how Chumlee spends his millions. Before we find out how he spends it, isn't anybody curious how this guy made all that money? Well, here you go. Chumlee was a contestant on the hit game show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which ran from 1999 to 2019 and was hosted originally by Regis Philbin, then Meredith Vieira, Cedric the Entertainer, Terry Crews, and finally Chris Harrison. Chum rolls through the questions invoking his expertise in random trivia knowledge and nails the final question about Pac-Man to fulfill his lifelong dream of being a millionaire. Wait, that was just a dream. Chumlee spends a lot of time dreaming, also daydreaming and wasting time. In his quest to become a millionaire in real life though, he's tried almost everything. He took a stab at stand-up comedy and was pretty funny, but his boss wasn't too thrilled with his brand of humor. Or maybe he's just sensitive about his bald head.
My third boss, Nick, you wouldn't believe how fat and bald he is.
So Chumlee switched gears and decided that if entertainment wasn't his bag, maybe he could be a successful businessman. And as all good businessmen know, you gotta have cards to market yourself. And the more business cards you hand out, the better. Your name doesn't even have to be spelled right. Once his name is out there, Chum goes to work on making millions. But as his colleagues claim, he isn't really very good at the whole pawning thing. He has a tendency to overpay for stuff, or to buy things just because he thinks they're cool, without really considering the resale value, which is the whole point of a pawn shop. And he just generally doesn't know much. But he's not as bad as he may initially seem. Take this for example. Rapper Sean Price shows up to sell Chumlee a potato. He has quite a story about how the potato had been thrown at Martin Luther King Jr. and asked $100,000 for the historic spud. But Chumlee's not to be trifled with. He spots all the holes in Price's story and ends up getting the potato for $2.25. A deal worth its weight in, well, French fries. Okay, but seriously, his net worth is $5 million. Where did he get all that cash? In 2016, a sexual assault allegation led police to raid Chumlee's home, in which they found meth, marijuana, Xanax, and evidence of cocaine use. A vault was also found inside his house which contained several items suggesting that he had been not only using these drugs, but also dealing. Okay, I'm not suggesting that Chum made all his millions selling drugs. It looks like he was at least supplementing his gold and silver pawn shop paycheck with a little something. But Russell has also been one of the more popular characters on the show, and thus was able to create his own company selling novelty items that he designed. And being a fan favorite has allowed him to charge big bucks to make public appearances, as much as $50,000 to give a speech. And now that we have a little idea of how Chumlee made his fortune, let's get to what we've all been waiting for. Here's how Chumlee spends his millions. We're used to seeing him stammer and hobble his way through trying to make up proper deals, but often he falls flat on his face as his lack of knowledge of the general merchandise that comes into the shop becomes disappointingly apparent. However, bring in a pair of sneakers and all of a sudden this guy's a walking encyclopedia. How does he know so much about shoes? It's not even in a googly-eyed shoe-loving trance either. Chumlee knows exact market values of each shoe that comes in and becomes a stone-cold negotiating machine. Who would have known? But in one peek into Chum's house immediately explains his most marketable skill. His shoe collection fills an entire room of his crib on wall-to-wall shelves and spills into the guest room and other parts of the house. When he gives the occasional tour, this seemingly simple dude emerges as a connoisseur, explaining the finer intricacies of color patterns, how the kicks pair with other attire, and the histories behind this mansion of footwear. And so we finally have one surefire explanation for where all the hard-earned Chum cash goes: shoes. But that's not all. Here we see Chumlee overpaying for a flamethrower. Elon Musk founded the Boring Company in 2016 out of frustrations with Los Angeles traffic and inspiration to find alternative methods of managing congested roads by digging tunnels. The company has also produced promotional merchandise such as hats and, yes, flamethrowers. They only produced 20,000 of these things, which sold in a matter of a few days. As you can imagine, the sale of flamethrowers is a little controversial, after some customs officials claimed that they would not allow shipment of anything called a flamethrower. The creator, in typical Musk fashion, announced on Twitter that he'd be naming this device not a flamethrower. So this is no doubt a rare item, but Chumlee, knowingly overpaying, spends $1,400. When confronted by Rick about the weapon's worth, he replies, "Who knows, who cares, it's dope." To which Rick replies that Chum will be purchasing this item from the shop if, in fact, he overpaid. They get an expert to look at it, and the actual worth is more like $1,200. In a stroke of genius, Chumlee turns the tables and begins negotiating with Rick on what he will pay because, as he says, Rick is really the one who put up the $1,400. Chumlee's just a lowly employee. At the end of the day, Chumlee walks away with a flamethrower, a slightly smaller paycheck, and we can all sleep a little more soundly knowing that this vigilante is armed and dangerous. By now you probably know way more than you ever wanted to know about Austin Lee Russell, and we've barely even scratched the surface of the enigma that is Chumlee. But alas, we finally know how he spends all that cash. Do you have some favorite Chumlee moments? Leave them in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Behind the Screen to stay up to date on all the content we have coming your way.